How's it going, everybody? Carpo. Well, I just thought I'd make this quick little video to talk about my love-hate relationship with alcohol. First, I'm going to take a drink. In this cup, I have a very special blend. It's milk with sweetened condensed milk and baker's cocoa and a lot of Rumple Mints. I went to the store tonight to get schnapps, and I only do this about once a year. Actually, I only do it once a year, period. I go out and I get a bottle of liquor. And every time I start drinking my first drink, I get about halfway done and I've got a hefty buzz. I have a very low tolerance for alcohol. For those who watch my videos, I smoke a lot of pot. But even then I still have a pretty low tolerance for weed. But that's really all I consume, is like cannabis and kratom. Alcohol is a very special occasion kind of thing. I've created a mental block to drinking alcohol because of my body and the way it handles it. I don't want to go through that feeling the next day. And also I know how it affects other medications, anything you may be taking. Just alcohol within the body is not a good thing. That said, the feeling of alcohol is great. And this is why people become alcoholics, obviously. So the people who aren't alcoholics, it's not always because they don't like alcohol, it's sometimes just because we've been cautious. I have friends who are alcoholics and I never wanted to get to that point because I know that the brain chemistry changes and you will always be an alcoholic. And I am an addict to marijuana, but whatever. I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about alcohol. I guess the reason I decided to make a video is because I got halfway done with my first cup and I went on YouTube. I saw somebody who had made a comment about something about how pot's illegal where they are and how we're lucky to have it legal. And I said, yeah, we worked hard to get it where it is. I remember the days when you couldn't find it, and now it's legal. And to all those who wish, or have tried to keep it illegal, I say, fuck you. And after I typed that, I posted it and thought about it, and I said, that's the way I truly feel. But I have enough tact to where I don't use the word fuck very often. And I thought, the only reason I used it is because I'd had a drink. And I know that. And I notice a pattern in certain people who will come on YouTube. Let's say you'll notice their comments go from like 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night or something, or maybe 10 to 2 in the morning. And they'll just be abrasive comments to people and nothing else, or maybe different times of the day they have different types of comments, and this is usually because of drinking. I mean, I know a lot of people who get drunk in the evening and then just go out and they just want to cuss at people and be harsh. And I don't mean this harsh towards people who drink, and I guess that's why I'm doing it while I'm drinking, so I don't feel like I'm pointing the finger at anybody who drinks. But I wish people who did drink would really look at themselves a little closer when they act that way, because people can't stand it. I cannot stand being around drunks. I mean, I'm halfway done with this drink. It only had about 2 shots of Goldschlager in it. Sorry, Rumple Mints. And so it's not like I'm drunk, but I've got a slight buzz. Getting drunk, drinking like 4 or 5, 6 shots, that would get me drunk and I'd be done. And I'd feel like shit the next day. And it's sad to me when people get sucked into alcohol because it's such a dangerous drug. And I mean that, a dangerous drug, as compared to all these other things we call drugs, pills. And I guess the reason why I say that is because you don't know how many alcoholics have pointed the finger at me calling me a stoner, saying, look at what you're doing, you're a lazy stoner, and they don't even remember what they did the night before. And I don't blame them for that. It's kind of like that's what we do. We point the finger at each other and say, this is how I feel, this is how you feel, my way is better, or whatever. But I guess to come right down to it, we all have our little vices, So from when I drink, it's like kind of a taste of that other world of how people are all the time, but at the same time, or how alcoholics may feel all the time, but at the same time I know that once you're an alcoholic, it's a different type of feeling. You don't get that same, "Durr." It's just like if you take Valium once and you get that spacey feeling. You take it regularly, you don't. If you're a stoner and you get stoned once, you get kind of a spacey feeling. If you smoke it regularly, you don't. So those who don't drink often and have a drink think, God, how can people be like this all the time? But they're not. Not if they're a maintaining alcoholic. The same way with being a stoner. I know people who might take one dab or one toke and say, how can you be stoned like this all the time? And it's like, well, I'm not. It's you get into this routine of taking things, and your body becomes accustomed to it. So it's called tolerance, I guess, but whether or not that's a good or bad thing remains to be determined to the individual. I'm sitting here looking at my new dabbing bong, and I'm thinking about taking one, but I'm kind of ripped. It might be okay. You know, I talk about these things, and I, at one time, was more like I would keep things like this to myself, you know, like whether I drink or whether I toke. And I decided that in my life I don't want to hide anything. I want to reveal everything about who I am. Because when you're hiding things, you're hiding from yourself. So when you have secrets in your life, it means that maybe you have some kind of a, something that you feel guilty about perhaps, or maybe it's just something that's embarrassing. But my thing is, nothing should be embarrassing, you know. I think the most embarrassing thing for people is addictions and sexual fantasies. That's a huge one for people. You can see it all over the internet because all the companies cater to it with their ads, and sex, drugs, and drugs. People want to hide their drug usage, you know. And I figured that the only time that people really need to hide it is when, or feel the need to hide it, is when they feel like they have a problem. And that's why I don't feel guilty about it, sharing myself drinking, because I don't drink often. That's why I don't feel guilty about sharing cannabis, because I'm not an abuser, I'm a user. And same with kratom and everything else that I do. So some people choose to use and some people don't. But hopefully it doesn't make anybody a lesser person in anybody's eyes, because I sure don't frown on alcoholics, because they're doing what they do, you know. People are people. You know, many of the great thinkers and philosophers of history have been heroin junkies and opium smokers and crackheads and cokeheads and alcoholics and stoners. Doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean it's not. It's just how life is. Some people choose to use. So, with that, I bid you adieu. I'll take my final drink. And head off into the wild blue yonder.